So I had a Memphis Shades Road Warrior fairing fail on this 2022 Iron 883. Let's talk about it. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Got another Iron 883 video for you on an upgrade I was trying to do. So if you've watched any of my other videos, you know that I've been wanting to do a fairing or a windscreen. So I did a bunch of research on what would be a good one for this bike, and it turned out it was the Memphis Shades Road Warrior fairing. So I made sure I watched a lot of videos on how to install it, made sure that it would fit this bike, everything on the website. I bought it through Revzilla, and there were no fitment issues that looked like that would apply. The only fitment issue it said was if you did have the fork mounted turn signals, that might be an issue. You might have to relocate them, which I don't have because I have the stock handlebar set up and the LED lights are in the stock position. So the only thing I've done to the handlebars is just did the mirror flip, and then that was it. So figured, okay, shouldn't have any problems. Looked fairly easy to do. So I went ahead and purchased it, and then I also got, you have to buy the brackets for it, the headlight extension, of course, because why would it come with the fairing? And then I bought the 15-inch smoked windshield. Based on the measurement I took and my height, that's the one that fit me. So I was really excited to get that on there, because riding at this time of day, you know, around dusk, sun's going down, just start getting pelted with bugs, and it's not very fun, especially when they get all over your visor. So I figured, you know, and to help with some of the wind, especially in the winter time if it's a little cooler out, be perfect. So when I went to install it, it didn't fit, and I thought I had to play around with it. You'll see I still actually have the brackets down here on the forks. I still have the headlight extension on, but I was playing around with it and could not get it to lock into place, and I looked and it kept hitting the turn signals. So I figured, all right, I'll take the turn signals off. Maybe once it gets into place, I'll be able to put them back on. Not the case. Once I got the fairing locked into place and then tried to put the turn signals back on, they would not fit because the fairing was in the way. And also I noticed that it was really pushing against my cables. So it was pushing in against this brake cable and then the throttle cable over here. You know, if it was pushing it in a little bit, it wouldn't be a big deal, but it was pushing in quite a bit to where I thought, it may or may not affect or wear out the cable faster or anything like that. So that was another issue. But the main issue I found is that after trying to spend hours trying to figure out why in the world it wasn't fitting, watching videos, all this stuff, turns out, at least for me anyway, I don't know if any of you guys have the same issue, but with the stock handlebar setup on the Iron, it does not fit. And then I went back and watched a bunch of the videos on the installation that I watched. Every single person had either risers for their handlebars or different type of handlebars like mini apes or something like that. And which made sense because I measured the fairing against the handlebars, and yeah, I would need about a 4-inch height at least in order for the turn signals to clear the fairing and not have any issues. So that sucked. So I'm like, okay, I want taller bars anyway. So I was thinking about doing a 4-inch riser, but then I also sat on a 1200, which has the mini 8s, and I really like those. They felt really comfortable. My hands were up higher, so I wasn't leaning over quite a bit. I'm like, all right, this will help my back on longer rides. So I talked to the Harley dealership, and the guy quoted me parts because obviously you have to get the extension cable kit, so you have to extend the cables that are up here because these stock configurations won't fit. So it ended up being $795 for just the parts. And then we went back to service, and the guy was on the phone, but he wrote down a number for labor, and it was $909. So I'm like, all right, $909 all in for the handlebar setup. That's expensive, but whatever, I'll do it. And then he's like, no, the $909 is just the labor. So the Harley dealership wanted over $1,600 to put on mini apes on this bike. And the handlebars were only $100 of that cost. Everything else was labor and all the extensions and everything you need. So I'm like, that's a no. So I went to another dealership that does every other bike too. They're not just a Harley dealership, just to see what they said. And they actually had a guy in that same day that had issues mounting his Memphis Shades fairing, and they had to change out his handlebars and relocate the turn signals. They didn't tell me what they charged him, but I told them I wanted the mini apes, and they sent me a quote later on. It was over $2,000 from that dealer. Like, are you nuts? So this is just going back to my video. I'll post a link up here where I have a dilemma with this bike. It seems like to make this thing comfortable how I would want it, not even considering any of the engine and power upgrades, I might as well buy a Softail like the Street Bob. The Street Bob has the mini apes, and I sat on it, and it feels really good. It does have the 114 in it already, so you're good to go there. And the Memphis Shades Road Warrior fairing with the bracket that fits this bike also fits the Street Bob. So I know I purchased this bike for like around $12,000. So between, say, $1,600 for the handlebars, and then I want to get a Saddleman step-up seat. Just for those, I mean, you could buy a Street Bob for that, basically. Not to mention, you know, the shocks on this bike, I want to upgrade because they are terrible. And then the performance stuff. So, in that last video where I was having a dilemma, I talked about the upgrades I want to do costing more than just going out and buying a bigger bike. But I decided I was going to keep this bike and just upgrade it. You know, I do like the bike. I love the black denim, and I just love the sporty look of this bike, but it is uncomfortable in the stock setup, and the power is kind of lacking. So now I'm really considering upgrading to a Softail. Been doing a lot of research on that stuff. But if you guys have an Iron 883 in the stock handlebar setup, let me know if you were able to put on a Memphis Shades Road Warrior fairing, or what you were able to do. I looked into relocating the turn signals down to the bottom of the forks, but just where and how the fairing sat with the light, it doesn't seem like that'll work either. So I don't know, I'd have to find somewhere else to relocate them. I don't want to delete them entirely because I love the LEDs that I have and add just extra light at night. So I don't want to get rid of them, and it just doesn't seem like I'm going to be able to fit it on this bike unless I get taller bars or do risers. Even risers are expensive, and you still have to do the cable extension kits. So what seemed like, you know, the fairing and all that stuff was still expensive, but what was going to be a simple project is now turning into a pain in the ass. But if I get the Street Bob, everything I have will work and it'll just fit on there. You're good to go. I've already got the bigger engine, slightly bigger gas tank. I like, not much, but it is wider. Instead of having the peanut tank, it is wider. And it is set up for a 2-up, so it does have passenger pegs, which this doesn't. And I'm telling you, I definitely like the thought of the Softail setup just with the shocks, because I feel every bump on this bike. But yeah, let me know if you guys have any recommendations, if I do keep this bike, how to get it on there without spending all that money raising the handlebars. It's something I probably could do myself and have my buddies help me, but I've never really worked on bikes before, other than, you know, the putting on the slip-on mufflers on this bike and just some small stuff. I don't necessarily think I feel comfortable messing with the brake and throttle cables, just because I don't know what I'm doing. Yes, I could watch videos out there, but again, it seems like every time I try to do something after watching a video that made it look super easy, something goes wrong and it ends up being an entire project and very frustrating. But I'm going to throw some B-roll up here showing you exactly how it doesn't fit, and you'll see that the top of the fairing is hitting the turn signals, but then I'm also going to show you how the fairing actually pressed against the cables, and to me that just kind of didn't seem too safe. I don't know, it might not affect anything, but either way I can't do it because of the turn signals are in the way. And then even going and looking at the stock photos on Revzilla's website and Memphis Shades website, the iron in the picture has risers, so I should have caught that. But it's funny, yeah, going back and looking at every video of people that installed it, I didn't realize they had taller bars or risers until I went back and watched it. I'm like, oh. So I definitely want to go still test out the Softails. Like, I want to start on the Street Pop, see how that feels. It's just sitting on it, I mean, it does feel like a bigger bike, but any Harley other than this one is going to feel like a bigger bike because they are. So I want to test drive that, and I also really want to test drive the Lowrider S, just because then you're getting the 117, you're getting the inverted front forks, which are supposed to be really good. And yeah, I've heard really good things about the Lowrider S, but then it's like, okay, spend a little bit more money and get the Lowrider ST, because then it comes with a fairing that's supposed to be really good. It also comes with bags, because on this Sportster I did put a sissy bar and put a sissy bar bag on so I can run errands. The little saddle bag really wasn't cutting it, couldn't really fit much in there other than a hat, a couple small things. But with the sissy bar bag I need to do a review on, I can fit a lot of stuff in there and can actually take this bike to do some errands, which is nice. But again, then if I get the Street Bob or Lowrider S, I'm going to have to buy some sort of sissy bar just so I can put the bag on to do errands. But it's like, man, they really get you, because it's like, well, if you spend a little bit more here, you don't have to do all these other grades, and then if you know, spend more, and then all of a sudden you got a freaking $25,000 motorcycle, and it's like, oh. I really don't want to have the equivalent of a car payment for a bike. But it's like, once you start calculating all the upgrades they want to do to any bike, it ends up adding up, and then you're like, well, I might as well just get the next bike with all those features. So I don't know. But what kind of sucked is I went to the Harley dealership last weekend, and we were getting ready to fly out to California, but I wanted to ride one just to try it out and see, you know, if that is an option that I'd want to go. So I sat on several of them, and the guy was like, all right, let's just go ahead and test drive. I'm like, all right. And he's like, give me your driver's license and make sure you have your endorsement. So I pulled out what I thought was my driver's license and handed it to him. Well, he handed it back because it ended up being my concealed carry license, which if you're in a state that has those, it looks like a driver's license. So at some point, because I kept my driver's license actually in front of that, And at some point, my driver's license fell out of my wallet, and I didn't know it because the concealed carry was behind it and still there. It looked like a driver's license. I usually don't get carded anywhere. So I have no idea how long I've been riding and driving without a driver's license. But luckily I went to go test drive because we were getting ready to fly to California, and I would not have had my driver's license with the real ID. I don't know if I could have used that concealed carry or not, but luckily I have a passport. But had I not realized that, I wouldn't have thought to bring my passport. Also, let me know if there's any other fairings out there or windscreens that you guys know of that would look good and work really well on the Harley Sportster. Maybe if I do keep this bike, I'll just have to look at other options right now, even though I can't return any of the stuff I bought, like the fairing or anything, or the brackets, because once those are open, they don't take returns unless something's damaged from factory. But thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll see what happens with that fairing and this bike. Maybe I'll trade it up on the next video, you never know. Or maybe you'll see the same bike on the next one. So, never knew, but stay tuned. If you guys like this content, motorcycle related, hit that like and subscribe button to be notified when I come out with more content like that. And check out this playlist here, where I go over some other videos on the Iron 883.